Good afternoon. Obviously, I have a really hard act to follow, but my project should be a really good segue into architecture because it deals with digital technology. It's not my project, first of all. I worked for Eisenman Architects, but I was on the team from the initial stage of the competition being won. I'm going to describe the project. I'm going to read it out so I don't make any mistakes because it is not my project. And then I'm going to describe my role and some of the things that happened and how it evolved through time. So today I'm presenting an architectural project that integrates digital technology in its creation from the early conceptual stage into its design process and later through fabrication and construction of the architecture itself. The City of Culture is located in Santiago de Compostela in northwestern Spain, a World Heritage Site known for the pilgrimage to Santiago. In 1999, the Parliament of Galicia, Spain, sponsored an invited design competition for the creation of a new contemporary city of culture to be located on top of a mountain in the city of Santiago de Compostela. This new city would contain 6 buildings: a Museum of Galician History, a new technology center, a music theater, a library, a periodical archive, and the Central Services Building. From a list of 6 renowned architectural firms, Eisenman Architects won the competition. The project was commissioned by the Junta of Galicia, which is in the government of the autonomous community in Galicia, Spain. The design of the project began as an analysis of the city, its history and its culture. This led to selecting 2 principal elements that symbolize the city: the scallop shell and the medieval plan itself. The project was conceived as a surface that emerged from the ground like a shell emerges from the sand. As a shell emerges from the sand, it becomes a form, so does the building itself. The surface was then superimposed with 3 grids: a map of the medieval city center, a topographical map of the hillside, and a modern Cartesian grid. So in the virtual space of the computer, the superimposed grids shifted and rotated to create a new dimension, which is a third dimensioning organizing system made up of these 3 lines, 3 maps, creating a series of lines. This became the digital framework that is used to define the new building forms, streets, and interior spaces. The architecture that emerges from the earth becomes both figure and ground interchangeably, with spaces and streets reminiscent of the old city, but defined by a new contemporary language of the digital. Okay, now I'm going to explain it a little bit better. Okay, so what you see on the screen right now is on the bottom corner, you see the actual city, the medieval city of the city of Santiago de Compostela. And what you see at the top is the competition entry. Now, I came on board right after they won the design competition. They were looking for, at that point, nobody knew if this was going to get built, but the talks were still going on with the Minister of Culture from Spain as to whether or not to continue with the project. I found out about the project in a magazine, and I decided, well, I would love to be on this project because my father was originally from the same area. When we started working with the project, we had to find a language that we can work with that had to do with the integration of digital technology into the project itself. Peter Eisenman is known as one of the pioneers in integrating digital technology with architecture. And so he was really interested in developing this project with digital technology. And that's why we worked with the 3 maps. Part of what he intends to do with his work is to try to remove the hand of the architect as the author and instead use analysis through looking at the history of the city, looking at things that have to do with culture, and bringing those things into the design of the project. A group, it started off as just me for a long time, working on the project alone. And then when the project, as things progressed, they brought in 5 more guys. So it was me and 5 guys working on the project. So let me go back to the shifted grids. When we worked with these grids, we torqued the grids to think about creating a digital framework that would become the skeleton in a way. And then from that skeleton, that skeleton would be the ordering fabric, and then we would create the buildings inside of the computer in virtual space. Now this was very difficult to do. So we started chopping up inside digital space. We started chopping up the space, the lines, and bringing them down into flat plans and sections, which is what we call them. This was before Rivet. This happened in the early 2000s, so it had to be done utilizing 6 to 7 different software applications. So what you're looking at right now are the buildings set up, starting with the lower right-hand side from you. There's the Hemeroteca, which is the periodical library. Above that is the library. Above that is the Opera House Music Theater, which has not been built yet. Then you have the Central Services Building. Across from that, you have the Museum of Galicia. And then in front of that, you have a music center. Of the 6 buildings that were designed, 4 of them have been built. 2 are still on the table. This is us working with the lines. We had to program the architecture, working with figuring out how much space we needed, right? But still working inside of the computer, trying to figure out how we were going to design the walls, the structural system, and so on. It became like basically a layering process. What you see over there are the renderings for the periodical library. And over here, what you see are the plans for the periodical library. It was a very complex system. It was located on a mountaintop. Obviously, the contours of the land were complicated, and on top of that, the architecture itself was very complicated. So we had to use a lot of notation so that the contractors understood everything. So what you're looking at is a grid format, and then a bunch of call-out systems that tell you where the details are, where to find them on a page. Very difficult process. What you're looking at right now is the reflected ceiling plan for the actual periodical library as well. And now I'm going to show you a section of the periodical library. Now, we were only allowed to take images from the office because it was a very high-profile project once the project was in construction. So this is the only building I can actually show you in terms of construction documents, but what I can show you next are some of what's already been constructed in the new buildings. So this is what the project looks like. So you're approaching it, and you start to see these buildings emerge from the ground, and it's very, very large in scale. This is when you're entering between the periodical library and the library itself. This is in front of the periodical library, and here is the periodical library walls being used by children. They love this space. They just run up and down when they're there. Here is the facade of the periodical library. Now, this was a very complicated facade. When we started constructing the building, now let me go back, that this started to be designed, we started designing it in 2000. But construction it went on for a long time. It's actually literally in 2013, the last building I saw, which is the museum, was built. So it's still an ongoing project. And every single piece of glass on that facade is a different dimension. So if we were allowed to create it in a reasonable price tag because of CNC milling and utilizing computer technology to actually construct the facade and the parts in the building. Here are some of the facades of the other buildings. The plaza system. Here is the interior. This is of the library. I'm going to show you a number of interiors. Another interior. All of these are from the library.